So apparently, they finally identified the remains of Frankie Little Jr., who was from the band the O'Jays. So I read this from NBC News. So according to this article I read, a bag of human remains was found back on February 18th of 1982. And they only just now identified who these remains came from. They identified who it was on Tuesday, December 14th this year. So because this is about a member of the O'Jays, I immediately thought of the song For the Love of Money. That's the first thing I think of when I think of that band, that song, For the Love of Money. Very famous song. And that song was inspired by the Bible verse from Timothy. I forget exactly chapter and verse, but it's, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." So I discovered a while back that verse sums to 666 using the keypad cipher of gematria. This is the cipher that represents the alphanumeric buttons on your telephone. So of course many different Bibles use many different wordings, but I used the King James Version. Took that verse, calculated to be 666. So knowing that connects with the song For the Love of Money, who was by the band the O'Jays, and then we had this member of the band who was finally identified on December 14th this year. I went backwards a span of 666 days. It brings us to February 18th last year. So February 18th happens to be the anniversary of when the body with the remains of that body were originally found decades ago. Now it's worth pointing out, at least from what I read this morning, the person who they identified, Frankie Little Jr., he was in the O'Jays, but apparently he wasn't involved in that song For the Love of Money. But that's the very first thing I think of when I think of the O'Jays, so immediately I just made this connection. So you can call it a stretch if you will. But of course, many of us in the gematria community think of 218. I think of Trump, partly because of his 218 presidential alert he put out in the year 2018. It was 218 White House time, but Trump was elected 218 days before his birthday, and there's a whole list of things connecting Trump with that number. But in all capital letters, Trump equals 218 with the Francis Bacon cipher. And if you think about capital, you think about money, and this is what this is about. It's the love of money. Trump's a big money man, right? He was always associated with money for decades. And he was in that show, The Apprentice. And one of their, I guess, spin-off shows, The Celebrity Apprentice, used that song For the Love of Money. And apparently people in charge of the O'Jays, attorneys or whatever, apparently were getting really mad that that song was being used. They didn't want it used by Trump, I guess. But anyway, Trump equals 218, all caps. The Apprentice, using the reverse satanic cipher, The Apprentice equals 666. And those numbers connect in a few ways, but one of them is that the Bible depicts the number 666 in a few different verses. And what they say in a few of these verses is 603 score and six. The letters, not the digits. 603 score and six actually means 666. So you might have read about King Solomon and his 666 talents of gold. The King James Version puts it like this: "Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 603 score and 6 talents of gold." So So they word it without the digits. It's the word 603 score and 6. And if we use the obscure cipher, reverse full reduction EP, those words 603 score and 6 equals 218. And if you think about Solomon, even people break down that name, Sol, Aman, think about the sun, Sol, sun god. Of course, Solomon, moon, sun and moon. They both have this 666 connection. The planetary magic square of the sun, you might know about this. If you add all the numbers in that magic square, the sum is 666. Of course, use the Fibonacci cipher. Apollo equals 666, and Apollo, of course, is associated with the sun. The list goes on. In one of the Sumerian ciphers, the ordinal times 6, the words $sign equals 666. Also, the word monetary equals 666. So, I could go on, but, I guess the point is just that they found the remains of this member from the O'JAYS. So that's the recap there. Member of the O'JAYS, Frankie Little Jr. They originally found this bag of remains back on February 18th, decades ago. And they only just identified him the other day, Tuesday, December 14th this year. If we go backwards a span of 666 days from then, that brings us to the day 218.